Good evening, everyone. My name is Julianne Hirsch, and with me I have Kristen Wickstead and Becca Meekins. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen Interview Subcommittee for the DEIB Committee tonight. First, I will read the directive from the Governor. This open meeting of the Board of Selectmen Interview Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16th, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the interview committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the interview committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Sorry, my dog thinks that he wants to participate. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Each vote taken this evening will be conducted by roll call vote. Kristen, when I call your name, could you confirm that you are here? Kristen Wickstead?
Present.
And the first thing on our agenda would be acceptance of the meeting minutes. I read the minutes, they seem to be fine, and I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes as given to us.
I had one thing that I noticed. It was a very small thing and I didn't get a chance to email Diane before the meeting, which I know would have been ideal. It just said that Susie Sizlica was present at all the master plan implementation committee meetings, and what it should say is that Susie was present at all the master plan committee meetings, not the MPIC, not the new master plan that we're doing now, but the first one.
Okay. So can I make a motion that we accept the minutes as you just corrected them?
Yeah.
Is that a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The minutes as corrected stand. Okay, so now we move on to interviews, and our first candidate is Cynthia Moore. I think it's 5:30. We are hopefully catching up with time. So Becca, if you want to bring that Cynthia in.
Yep, do that right now.
Thank you. Cynthia, are you here?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Like you pop in, right?
You have a beautiful background back there, some beautiful green trees.
Thank you. I'm kind of missing California right now. I used to live in California years ago. My brothers are still there. So it's my little piece of California.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
So Cynthia, you have kindly applied to be a member of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. And we usually start off with this with introducing ourselves. So I'm Julianne Hirsch on the Board of Selectmen. I have with me Kristen Wickstead. We're actually the interview subcommittee, and Becca Meekins, who is the assistant town administrator and also a voting member of the DEIB committee. And the way we usually start this off is tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this committee.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So I am a 20+ year resident of Northborough. I'm a homeowner here. I've raised 2 children here. And I come from a very diverse family. We are a multicultural, multinational, multilingual, multiracial family. Not my immediate family, but my extended family. So my brothers and my sisters are all fit within that description, I should say. So I'm very lucky in that I've grown up in a I grew up and was raised in a very open, very diverse environment, and so have my children. So as an individual, I identify as somebody who is within the queer community, and I also identify as somebody with a disability. I am a single mother by choice, and I have children who also identify within the queer community as well. So I guess I would say that I'm a rarity in that I have both a disability and also have these other labels in my life and these other experiences. I'm also somebody who grew up in extreme poverty. And when I was a child, I was actually homeless at one point and I lived in a car. So, to go from that to being a corporate executive to being an entrepreneur and a small business owner is quite a journey in life. So I have a lot of different perspectives to bring to the table as an individual and as a mother as well. And then professionally, what I do now, I'm actually retired from the financial services world where I used to be an executive at Fidelity. And now I am the president of the nonprofit, the Special Needs Advocacy Network, which is the professional association of special education advocates and attorneys in Massachusetts. We also have members from other states, but concentrated mainly in Massachusetts. And on top of being that, I'm a special education advocate myself. So that's my small business that I run out of my house. And on the side, I'm a recreational number theorist, which means that I study unsolved math problems and work on creating proofs and patents related to that. That's what I do for fun. So I'm a rare bird. What else can I tell you? Does that hit the keynotes, or is there anything I left out that you want to ask me? I'm a very open person, so feel free to ask me.
I wouldn't know what else to ask.
I wrote down some questions. Let me see if you read them and see if you haven't covered them.
Sure.
But my first question for everybody was what diverse groups that you represent, and you talked about that. Do you want to go into any more detail, or do you feel like you've covered everything?
I think one of the pieces of background that might kind of help to even expand your understanding of my perspective in life is that I'll give you like a family origin story here. I come from a long line of very independent women. God bless them all, right? And my grandmother was a Jewish woman who married an orphan from England. And she was basically disowned by her family for marrying outside the Jewish faith. And then my grandmother went on to hide the fact that she was Jewish all her life because of all the discrimination that she experienced. My other grandparents, my mother's parents, my grandmother was Protestant and my grandfather was Catholic. My grandmother was blind and she was missing an eye. She lost an eye as a child. And so she, had that to deal with. And when she was growing up, Protestants were called dirty Protestants. And so, she married outside of her family, outside of her faith. And she was also basically ostracized from her family. And I forgot the last part too. My grandfather that my Jewish grandmother married was also Irish. And so he was subject to no Irish need apply, Nina. And he ended up being a boxer because it was the only thing that he could get a job for, because they wouldn't hire any Irish people. So I come from a whole family filled with people whose lineage was filled with, being ostracized from society, being discriminated against. And I think that that's part of what ended up causing my generation, my brothers and sisters, to all be very diverse families and marry into and adopt different religions and different cultures. And I think that that's sort of what made us all open, was the fact that what our grandparents had experienced and where that brought us to. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of a deeper understanding.
Yeah, sure. But now you are an advocate. I used to be a speech to language pathologist. I worked in school.
That's great.
I'm very familiar with what an advocate is, but maybe you should describe that a little bit, because after we meet tonight, I'm sure you know this, we have to take
and turn off the phone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Take our recommendations to the full board, and then the 5 of us will vote. And I'm not 100% sure that everyone knows
Sure.
in detail what an advocate is. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So it's great that you're a speech language pathologist. I have clients who are speech language pathologists and who are teachers and who are principals and all that sort of stuff. Basically, a special education advocate is somebody, and we all do a little bit different. So I'm going to describe what I do. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person 4 doors down the street does exactly what I do. So what I do is I help parents and families, so not just parents, because we have many different people who actually have educational custody of children, right? It's not always their birth parents, right? I help families understand what their rights are in the world of special education and general education, not just special education. And I also help them understand what social services and supports there are out there, what's available through Mass Health, what's available through the Department of Developmental Services, through the Department of Mental Health, nonprofits, et cetera. I help families connect to the resources they need in order to help their child develop into their potential. So not just educationally wise, but as a human being and as a member of society, as a member of the community, recreation, that sort of thing. So parents hire me or families hire me to actually help them understand how to navigate both the educational world and the social infrastructure world, the social support world. And like I said, I have clients who are principals at school districts, not our school district, but and teachers. And then I have parents who are none of that. They have other occupations. And basically what a special education advocate does in my form of business is I work as a consultant. So parents hire me for as little or as much as what they need from my services. I work on, like an hourly consultant. And sometimes my relationships with these people last for a couple months, and sometimes my relationships last with them for years. It depends on what kind of support they need.
Okay.
Does that give you a good understanding of what the job is?
I think so. And is there any particular, I know when people ask me about my experience doing speech therapy and working in schools, are there any particular stories I'm really proud of, kids that I worked with or families that I worked with that I am proud of? What are some of your highlights of your?
Yeah, I have to tell you, it's funny because a lot of times people see advocates as an adversarial role, because the word advocate is, if you look in the dictionary, it says like deviling. It has like these negative connotations, right? But if you do your job well, it actually isn't a negative role. It's actually a very healing role and something that brings people together. And I'm so glad that you asked me that question, because this year I was really honored by having 2 school districts actually asked to hire me. And so in both situations, I was in a meeting and we were talking about some conflict and we were getting to the end of the resolution. And the person from the district said, "Can you stay on and have a conversation with me?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. It happens all the time, right?" And the parents were like, "I want to stay on." I'm like, "Fine, sure, no problem. You can stay on." The district's like, "No, this is just between you and her." I said, "No, they're my client. They can stay." And they offered me jobs, and they said, "We really like the way that you handle conflict and how you bring people together. We don't dread having meetings with you, and we would love to have you as part of our team." And I would say that is, before this story, my stories were all about this amazing outcome of this child, this amazing outcome of that child, the family that got changed, all that. This year, it was, wow, I really must be doing something right if the people who are quote unquote adversaries or the opposite side of the table are comfortable enough to say, "Look, we want to bring you in because you've got the skill set." And the joke was, I was like, I should just retire now, because it doesn't get any better than that, right? That's it. It just doesn't get any better.
That is the greatest compliment an advocate.
I really think it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't accept the jobs, but I was very glad.
Work for yourself, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Julianne, did you have any other? Well, Becca, how long are these time? Or do we have 15 minutes or 10? Sorry.
The time for 10-minute slots.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have to give Becca time to take questions from Cynthia and to explain the committee.
Yeah. So did you have, Julianne, did you have any specific questions or?
I was just going to follow up with Kristen's question and comment that handling conflict well is quite a talent. And with all that DEIB will encompass, not necessarily that there's conflict, but there's many issues on the table, and I think that skill will be very helpful. So anyway, Becca, did you want to explain the committee, the schedule,
Yeah, I just want to, a little bit about the time commitment. We haven't set a formal schedule yet. Obviously, we want to wait until we get the committee created, and then we can have a discussion about, what works for people and what doesn't. The ad hoc committee was meeting twice a month, every month, for between 1 to 2 hours. I anticipate, this is it's going to be a permanent committee, and I would anticipate, depending on what kind of projects we're getting into, it could be up to 2 a month, 1 to 2 hours, and it could be once a month. It's really going to depend sort of on the availability of the committee members and sort of which direction, which task we try to tackle first, I guess, because there's lots of stuff out there that we can work on. So you are aware, right now, the remote meeting provision that's allowed by the state expires this Friday.
Oh, wow.
The legislature is, I guess I would refer to it as dragging its feet. It's probably the kindest way to put it. I think it's going to get extended, but there may be some delay between when it expires and when it gets extended, depending on how the legislature votes. So depending on when this committee comes together, our first meeting or two may have to be in person, depending on how that shakes out. But otherwise, if we have the ability to, and folks want to, we can certainly continue meeting remotely, provided that the state allows that. And I know that helps folks in terms of flexibility and accessibility and things like that. Other than that, I don't want to keep you too long. The committee's recommendations are on the website. So, definitely take a look at those if you haven't had a chance. The charge is finally on the website. Thank you, Julianne, for telling me that it wasn't. So it's up there now. So take a look at the charge so you can get a better idea of sort of, what we're going to try to work on. And, if you ever have questions, I'm always here. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to talk, in more depth about the DEI work that we're doing. So
Great.
Thanks for being here.
Sure, absolutely. I know that you've got to get on to the next person. And I do have one question, but I can certainly send it off to Becca. And I'm perfectly fine with doing that.
Well, Kristen had to leave for a second.
Sorry, no, I just had to shut the door so the cat didn't get out. Cat number 1 can go out, and she opened the door herself.
Oh.
Cat number 2 doesn't go out, and I couldn't leave the door open. Sorry. So, sure, we have time for a question. What's your question?
So, when I read the report, the final report that was presented and whatnot, when I read it, I come at this from a bunch of different angles when I'm thinking about things, right? Not just the disability world, but one of the things that really struck me was that out of the report, I think it was a handful of times that the word disability was mentioned. And one of the things that typically happens is that communities who are very active often form a disability commission. And I didn't see that in the recommendations. And I was kind of surprised by that, because there's funding that comes from the state that comes along with the Disability Commission. And I had other people in town, not related to this committee, but other people in town, like emailing me saying, when are you going to start a Disability Commission in town? And I was like, oh, let's just wait and see what the report says. So I had wondered, like, why that sort of didn't make the radar, or if that's something that's in the horizon for the future, because I know there's a lot to tackle, and and that's just one angle, but I was wondering about that because there's this state funding that comes with that.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to talk about that, Becca, or?
Yeah, so I'll just say the disability committee piece specifically didn't come up, and that's not intentional. We had a very short window of time, and we tried to get through a lot. So by all means, we weren't intentionally leaving it out. It's not that we're not interested in it. It was just a matter of we had limited time, and we tried to touch as many things as we could and go into as much detail as we could. The one piece that we had talked about was the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And it was really only brought up because it was already on my radar internally as a staff person. And so I brought it up, but we could have entire committees about just little pockets of DEI. And so, one of the things that I really think is important for the committee is, it's going to be a lot of work trying to wrap our arms around everything at once. So I think trying to pick focus areas for a certain set amount of time and really focusing in on them is going to be important and allow us to be more intentional in our work, and I think move the needle a little bit further. And I think that there's definitely room, certainly, for disability rights to be one of those buckets that we dive into. I just don't, it's going to depend a lot on the interests of the committee members and what direction people want to go in. So it wasn't intentional.
No, and I didn't think it was like you intentionally left it out. I just didn't know if you had gotten to it yet. Yeah, because it's a big expanse to look at, things to look at and consider. And so that's just one of the things that's out there. And I love things that come with funding. I love things that already, we have money that comes in, now we can start solving problems. We don't have to raise taxes to do it. It already exists. So that's why I was asking about it. Right. And then, I know that you had started looking, this is my last question, you guys had started looking to fill this role back in May, and it's July now. And I wondered, why is it still open? Have you had much interest, or it just takes that long to go through the interview process? Or
I can fill you in on that. So at the end of May, we had a select board meeting. They had done some interviews, the previous interview committee.
Oh, okay.
Had done some interviews. There are 6 spots that the select board fills for this committee. There are 9 total, but 3 of them we don't pick the people. So there are 6 spots. There were 5 people who interviewed last time. So even if we had voted to just take all 5 of those people, one of them still would have been open. So we would have still had to do more interviews. But at the time, we didn't have representation of anybody from the disability community. We didn't have anyone from the Black community or the Indian community. And I think there were some others. So I just threw it out there. Can we just keep looking for people?
That's
so
smart.
We did get some fantastic applicants that we were really impressed with. But I wanted to keep going, and the rest of the board eventually decided that was probably the safe bet, because it's rare to have to fill an entire committee at once. Usually we're just filling 1 or 2 spots because they're staggered on purpose.
Right.
So that's the other thing. These committee spots will all be staggered 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, so that in the future, they won't all come up at the same time again.
That's really smart. Yeah, I deal with that with my board too. So that's really smart. Well, thank you for your time. Unless you have any more questions for me, I know you're probably over time now, but I did have those 2 that were piquing my curiosity.
Those were good questions. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm so pleased to have met you all, and thank you for making time for me tonight, and good luck with the committee and all your other duties as well.
Right, I know. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Stay healthy.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so our next applicant is Tim Kalin. Is Tim Kalin here?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go shut that door that the cat opened. I'll be right back.
Okay.
She's amazing. What are you doing? Bye. Oh, here you go. She's like Houdini.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Julianne.
Hi.
Hi,
So,
Tim.
Tim, you probably know everyone here. You've worked with Becca, and you know Kristen Wickstead, and thank you for helping to start the committee, and for applying for for the next round of the DEIB committee. So we always start off with, tell us your major interest in applying again.
I think after serving on the committee for the first year of its life, I realized that there's still a lot of work to be done. My plan wasn't to apply for the committee again. I figured I would let the community take over the DEI committee because it's such an important committee, and let other people get involved. But once I heard that there hadn't been enough people that applied, I thought it was important to at least get somebody that has some experience, not only with the committee, but also experience in the social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion world.
Okay. Kristen, do you have any
Yeah,
questions?
I did. I wrote down my questions. So Tim, this first question I'm just asking everyone, so feel free to answer it however you feel makes sense. So do you represent certain diverse groups? Feel free to mention ethnicity, religion, the LGBTQ spectrum, immigration status, disability, community connection, etc.
I think it's clear from the video that I do not. I represent the tattooed community.
Oh yeah, well, that's one I didn't have on my list. Okay, but all right, well, you do have municipal experience. Obviously, you have a lot. You had council on aging on your application. Was that as a liaison, or were you actually on the council on aging at one point?
Nope, I was on the council on aging, not just
Okay.
as a member. Yep.
Okay, yeah, great. And okay, here's my other big question for you. Are there other kinds of volunteerism you want to share that you've done in the community? Because I personally think that's really relevant for all these boards and committees, like with your kids or the schools or other things, or it's fine if it's just all town boards and committees. You certainly have done a lot of that.
Well, I mean, I've coached my kids' soccer teams and stuff like that. Just regular American dad type of stuff.
Okay. Okay. Great. That's really nice. And what do you think is really important about this committee? I know you have a good answer for this because you started it. So.
There's a lot to it, and since the committee has wrapped up last December, and I've had some time to think about it. Some of my perspectives on it have changed quite a bit. In that time, I've started a podcast called Born on Third, and I've had guests from all different backgrounds. My last guest was he was on Good Morning America in May and had the #1 book on Amazon, and he's a pastor, serial nonprofit entrepreneur, and his book is called Neighborliness, and his insight into what needs to be done on a community level was really interesting. It would be his perspective on things would be really helpful for this committee. Another perspective that's changed for me is a lot of focus when you get into this type of work has been to put the onus of the work on underrepresented people. They're the ones that need to do the work, be part of the work. And there's this general belief in this type of work that white people should be on the periphery and not be directly involved. And I couldn't disagree with that more. The majority are the people that need to change. The majority are the people that need to adjust their culture and their views. And the majority needs to work on the majority. I think of Black men in their in their justified fear of police officers, and the experience that Black men have had historically with police in this country. And when you think of a committee like this, asking Black men to come in and offer solutions to a police force that have, I'm not saying Northborough has, but police in general have been violating their human rights for decades, if not centuries. You need to have underrepresented people's input. You need to have them involved with the process. But I think the majority needs to be the people that do the work, that lead the charge, that implement these solutions, that don't rely on underrepresented people to do the work for us.
Right, okay, but so the committee doesn't necessarily do the work, though. They do a lot of the figuring out what the work needs to be. I completely agree that it's the majority that needs to do the work, but I guess what I'm seeing is that the committee is going to be deciding what the work that the majority needs to do is and where the problems are, and the work would be still done by the people in town hall and in the community in general. I do agree with you there. It's like asking, asking your Black friend, can you please explain why, this particular problem is a problem for you? It's like, it's not their job to explain racism to you. It's your job to go and figure it out. So I do certainly appreciate that point of view. Okay, and then you said professional experience in your resume, and I noticed you had a DEI certificate from a program at Northwestern. So do you have a specific project in mind where you provided DEI consultation that you were particularly proud of that you would like to share with us?
There's a lot. Unfortunately, from a professional standpoint, we work under a confidentiality agreement, and a lot of that work I cannot share. There's been organizations that I think would be surprised to hear about that have real deep-rooted racist problems that I've had to help people overcome and work through.
Okay. All right. Julianne, did you want to ask any specific?
Well, just to follow up on that. So you have a lot of experience and a lot of education in this field. So can you, so that the general public and myself can understand, like what kind of skills would you bring to, without naming any corporation or organization, that you would help them identify what they can do to improve?
Well, I think if you just go back and watch the 20 or so meetings that we had last year with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, that you will see what I can bring to the committee. It's really about listening and understanding. That's really what it boils down to.
Okay, and usually at this point we have Becca explain what your committee's done. I don't think you need that, correct? Are there any questions or any statements you'd like to make about your application tonight? Anything you want to add from your application, or as you said, you continue to think about it and evolve. So maybe that's where the question is what would you have changed in the year that you met?
There's a quote that I think about quite a bit. People can't seem to figure out who it's attributed to. The quote is something along the lines of, people that are used to getting 100% cry oppression when they get 98%. And I think that rings true to a lot of things that have happened in town. I think that I can connect that statement to some things that have happened in town.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one other question.
Yeah.
When I applied for I want to ask, do you guys think that this committee, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, is an important committee? Because when I applied for the ZBA, you said that since I was on the Appropriations Committee, which you said was a very important committee, and the ZBA was a very important committee, that you wanted to spread the wealth and you wanted to have more people come on. So do you view this committee as a very important committee?
So personally, and I'll let Kristen answer for herself, but I view all committees as very important, and some in different ways. So I might have made that statement that night, and there are certain committees like zoning, like appropriations, like diversity, actually, that have more far-reaching implications than other committees. Other committees address groups that of smaller interest, and even though, you know, eventually it encompasses the whole town, there are some that have immediate broad implications. And yeah, I mean, I personally definitely think that this is a very important committee. Yeah, so that would be my answer. Kristen, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, yes, I think it's an important committee too.
Does the Community Affairs Committee fall under that same definition?
So when I think about community affairs, I think that they are very important for a different feeling about town. You know, zoning has far-reaching implications with their decisions, decisions that will affect development 30 years from now. And same with appropriations. Community affairs, I think, is more short-term, cyclical.
And they do the summer concert series, and they organize the town cleanup. So they're important for those events, but I think they probably don't have the same kind of 30-year effect on the town the way some of the other committees do.
Do you have a comment on that? Is there something?
Well, I walked away from that experience feeling like there was two different sets of standards, one that was used for certain groups and one for another group. And I also think it would be helpful that you were going to use that standard of very important committees versus not as important committees to not appoint people to committees, that you should let people know which committees are on that list. Because it takes a lot of time to fill out the application and sit for these interviews. And then to get to the end to find out, well, I was already disqualified because I serve on a quote unquote very important committee.
That is a really good point, Tim, and I'm actually really glad you brought it up, and I intend to bring that up at our select board meeting when we do get it on the agenda to talk about revamping the interviews and the application and the whole appointment to committees process. I think it's a really good point, and it's very fair.
And I think another candidate actually brought that up to help us identify.
Yeah, other people have mentioned something similar to me in the past before I was on the interview committee, and I definitely see there are. It's fair. It's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice before all this to have that stuff in place. I mean, if you already knew about it, then should have been done.
We have a lot of work to do.
Yes, we certainly do.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you.
And thank you for pointing that out. Yep.
Becca, you don't need to say anything to Tim, right? Because you two were on the committee together before, so he knows exactly what.
I think Tim knows what's expected.
Yeah,
as a member of the DEI committee.
great. Okay. Thank you for throwing your hat in the ring again, Tim. I figured that was why you didn't apply the first time and you did apply the second time, because you wanted to make sure we had some good applicants. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I will also say too, if you feel that I'm not the right fit for the committee this year, I completely get it. I don't need to be on the committee to do work in this town,
Right.
especially around diversity and equity and inclusion
Yeah.
initiatives. So if, I'm not the right fit, I get it, no
hard feelings.
No, none at all.
Awesome.
I understand what
Hey,
you're trying to do.
I was hoping that we could always be able to count on you as an ally for this committee and the group of people that it represents. And I feel like we can.
Yes, it's what I do for a living. So I dedicate a good portion of my life to this work. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
perfect. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.
So next we have Dr. Ashish Verma.
Right. Full disclosure, he is my neighbor.
Oh,
He's one of the people I strong-armed into applying. Just kidding. He's well, this is actually before Cynthia came on. I wanted to say something about how two of our applicants, Ashish and I believe the second guy also, are green card holders. Hi, Ashish.
Hi. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Good. This is my my friend and fellow member of the Board of Selectmen, Julianne Hirsch.
Hi.
hello, nice to meet you.
Our
Thank you.
Assistant Town Administrator, Becca Meekins.
Hi, Becca.
Becca is also on the committee, on the Diversity, Inclusion, Equity, and Belonging Committee.
Awesome.
So one thing I was just telling these people, I was going to bring up is that you are a green card holder, right?
Correct.
So I think it's important that people realize that green card holders who are residents of Northborough are welcome to apply for these committees. I don't think a lot of people realize that. And the current application, another thing that's coming up about the current application, it asks if people are registered voters. And it doesn't say, there isn't another question that says, are you a green card holder, and that kind of thing. So Ashish had to just click no, which didn't leave room for him to explain like who he really is. And I just feel like that the current application could certainly, the DEI committee could take a good look at it and see how to fix it to make it more inclusive to immigrants, green card holders, and other people who aren't citizens of the US or not registered voters or whatever. So anyway, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So this is my first question for everyone. You chose to apply for this committee because you represent which diverse groups? Feel free to mention ethnicity, religion, LGBTQ spectrum, immigration status, disability, community connection, anything about your family that you want to mention, etc.
So from the ethnic background, I'm from India, and I'm a Hindu by religion and a practicing Hindu. And those were the main reasons for, applying to this committee. And, I'm a father of two girls and, again, similar background. And, so I'm hoping that we can diversify the committee more and be even more representative of our town and its people.
Great. Okay, thanks. So what do you think is really important about this committee in town, other than just having a group that is representative of all the different types of people in town?
So, I've been in town for about 12 years, and I can sense how the town's getting more and more diverse. And I mean, a lot of credit to the original residents of the town that, they're so accepting and so welcoming of newer people, newer folks and immigrants like myself. My family and I, we've always felt at home, and, it was so easy to settle down. And I think we want to keep that tradition alive and expand on it. So, some of us that have come from different backgrounds, are quite resourceful. They don't have language barriers as such. They do not have too many financial issues. And so for them, navigating, life in Northborough and Massachusetts in general is easier. But there's another set of population, immigrant population, that we can help and do more for them to make their settling down easier. People with, where English might be a language barrier. So it may not be, it's not my first language, but at least I'm conversant in it, I understand it. But it may not apply to them. So we could help those people. They may have financial challenges, social challenges, even simple things like religious issues, which we can become more sensitive to for them and help them acclimatize.
Mm-hmm. Right. Good. Thanks. As a physician, do you want to talk about how you can bring the perspective of people who are elderly, or I don't know if you could speak to physically disabled people to the group?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the elderly are like, unique. They are not this, they are adults, of course. They are more adult than the rest of us. But, that's where the challenge is. They have unique needs, which are not exactly the same when they were 20 years younger. So they might, besides the mobility challenges, which are obvious, and visual challenges, even the dosage of medications are different. The treatment that you may offer them are different. So, and plus their social situation, their living situation, everything changes. And I think we have to be, I think we understand from our own personal life experiences, from our parents, our grandparents, but, being on that committee for the seniors, for the elder, I think as a physician, it's helpful because I see them every day, and I see them from the other side when they are sicker. When you think about them and say, geez, will they actually ever be able to get back to their baseline despite all the medication we have done? That's, when you have to think about resources in the community. What about people helping them with meals? What about people helping them just get their medications or take their medications, reminding them to take their medications? So I think that's the kind of understanding and sensitivity a physician like me can help bring to the committee, to the town in general.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Those were my questions. Julianne, did you have any other questions?
My question was exactly your last question, because I think that I guess it's by virtue of your specialty that you understand the challenges of the elderly, and that's would be very beneficial. But at this point, usually Becca, who I hope we introduced her, our assistant town administrator, who is also on the committee, usually at this point explains the schedule and the meetings and some of the goals. And then we'd love to hear any questions you have.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, Ashish. Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. So just to talk a little bit about some of the more technical parts of the role, the committee right now, we don't have a formal meeting schedule. We're going to wait and see with the membership what works for them. Typically, meetings are in the evenings on the weekdays. Right now, we have the ability to meet remotely. So via Zoom, that ability is going to end this Friday. The legislature may or may not extend it. I think they likely will, but there may be a little gap. So just be aware that there's a potential that we may have to meet in person at the beginning. I just want everybody to be aware of that. But the goal is to continue with the Zoom meetings for flexibility and accessibility purposes. In terms of how much time I expect the committee to take, the original ad hoc committee was meeting twice a month for about between an hour to 2 hours each meeting. I would say, depending on what projects we get involved in, that the schedule could be similar, or it could be a little bit less, potentially maybe only 1 meeting a month. I would not anticipate that it would be more than 2 meetings a month. That's a pretty standard schedule, bi-weekly, an hour to 2 hours a night. So that's a little bit about what the time commitment is like. And then just from the perspective of what the committee is going to be working on, if you haven't had an opportunity, the recommendations that the ad hoc committee made to the Board of Selectmen are on the town webpage, on the board and committee page, the DEI committee page. Definitely recommend taking a look at those if you haven't already, because that's sort of a lot of the work that we're going to be focused on as a permanent committee moving forward. And then the charge for the committee, which is the role and responsibility of the committee, is also posted on the website. So certainly take a look at that if you haven't had an opportunity to do so. Other than that, if you have any other questions, anything comes up after the fact, I'm always available, happy to chat with you about DEI or town related matters moving forward. But thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you and welcome.
So, Dr. Verma, I want to tell you that what happens after this meeting is that Kristen and I talk about the candidates, and we actually have some guidelines to go by in deciding who is the best fit for the committee. But that's just a recommendation to the larger board, and the larger board is hopefully meeting this Monday. So at that point, you will be notified of what the decisions are.
Sure.
That's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for joining us tonight.
You didn't have any other questions, did you? We didn't actually give you a spot.
No, not really, because I had looked up the website and I talked to other people. So I have a fairly good sense of what's needed.
Okay.
And I think I'm a reasonably good fit, but let's see.
All right.
Thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
And next we have Srikanth Devi, but I'm going to have to get the pronunciation possibly corrected. Hi.
Here he is.
Can you hear us?
Here he comes. Sometimes it just takes people a minute to connect. So it looks like they're on, but their computer's still getting them on.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Can you,
Yes.
yeah, your camera, that's nice. Yeah, it's just weird to talk to a picture, and you look much more friendly in real life.
I think my son and your son are the same class. He's in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my son is high school. Yeah.
Oh, is he
Going to 12th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So they must know each other. That's funny. Maybe.
My son knows you, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. He's at camp, so I can't ask him, but I'll ask him when he comes home. Well, it's nice to meet you. How do we pronounce your first name?
Srikanth.
Srikanth. Okay.
Yeah, Srikanth. Yeah.
Is the last name Devi? Is Dage Devi? How do you?
Divi.
Okay, great.
Great. And this is Julianne Hirsch, and this is Becca Meekins, our assistant town administrator.
Hi, Vic.
Okay. So thanks for coming tonight to interview for this committee. So I'll ask you the first question I've been asking everybody. You chose to apply for this committee because you represent which diverse groups? Feel free to mention ethnicity, religion, LGBTQ spectrum, immigration status, disability, community connection, or anything about your family that you'd like to share.
Yeah, yeah, I'm from India. I've been here for almost 22 years in the US. Currently, I have pursuing a permanent resident green card, and I applied for citizenship. So hopefully, finger crossed, soon we'll
good.
get citizenship. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been I did a lot of consulting. Then finally, when I joined Delhi MC, I settled down because when I have family and kids, I think it's better to settle down in one company and then because you have to take care of kids. We don't want to keep on changing companies. So once I joined a stable company and settled down in I was in Westboro area. Then 2013, I moved to Northborough. I bought a townhome and moved to Northborough. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Dell AMC, we have Asian in Action community, where we do all the diversity, inclusion. We do all this. We do set of culture programs. We do celebrate. Any in the region. Cultures, events, celebrate. And every year I do the Diwali party every year in my office. So I encourage, and try to bring my culture. It's like festival of colors, right? So you want to meet each other, and know each other. So I would like to encourage social events. We do even when during pandemic, right? Like people are stressed at home, so I encourage social hour. Like every weekly we have a social hour.
You,
I think his Wi-Fi just might die.
All employees get together, and I think my internet connection might be a little slow.
Yeah, you just froze for a few minutes, so we missed a lot of the last
Okay.
few things you said. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that as a part of culture events, right? We celebrate Diwali, and in my office, and also I arrange a social hour in my office during pandemic, right? We want to have a stress-free life, so I encourage social hours like weekly. We talk to about each other, like how is family doing, how are you doing, how are you coping. It's like personal talk, not official. So we do social hour every week. That's what I started in my company. Weekly we do the social hour. So I want to understand how everyone is doing, right? Like it's want to know each other better when you're away from work. So that was I used to do. And recently, past 2 years, I coach my son. I was a coach of the youth soccer for fifth and sixth grades. So I was doing like a soccer coach. So that way I was able to learn, understand how kids, right? You have to make them do the soccer practice, right? So you have to understand. Sometimes initially it's tough, but you get used to get to know each other student, right? Like how kids playing, how you make them play, how you make them practice, right? And so at least I get to work with as a soccer coach. So that was other outside event. And also we have my mother tongue is Telugu, so we have a Telugu association in Greater Boston. So where do our cultural events, and in that we celebrate every festival we have, right? We celebrate in our cultural events. That's one of the private. Even we have like a Indian Association of Greater Boston. That also I'm one of the member, and like we celebrate Independence Day. Like here we celebrate our Indian Independence Day here. So I attend such. So what I want to bring is. I want to bring more awareness. If I think sometimes we don't meet each other. Uh, Maybe in as some social events, right? Different communities, they get together and they meet to each other, or you can celebrate in different culture. Like recently had in Northborough Park, right, we had some of the events, right? So I think we could encourage more such events. Maybe you can have a food festival, like we can bring food culture from all the different regions, right, and celebrate it in one place. So we like, that I want to encourage, more of some kind of a food festival. I don't know, we used to do here, but we want to have broader range of food festival. Like people can purchase any food, or they can enjoy the event, right? You can meet new people, like you meet diverse people, right? So that way, I want to bring that. And we have such events, but we want to make it a bigger event. Like Northborough never had a big event, but I think I want to bring that. Maybe sometime, during Diwali, right, we have a festival of lights, right? We put all the lights, all the like food fest, right? We can celebrate. Means that was my thought of bringing to the town.
Right. I think there are a lot of people in Northborough who are going to like the idea of a festival with food.
Yeah.
Food always
Yeah.
makes people come, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know you mentioned that you coach your son in soccer. So that was one of my other questions, was other volunteering you do in the community. And I noticed from your resume, I just have to throw this out there, you have a very, very extensive resume with a lot of information about all the things you can do that is relative to computers. So do you think any of that would apply to this committee or anything like that? It might be a silly question, but.
Yeah, more than my like IT background, I think I have I mentioned, like we celebrate Diwali, so we have cultural events. So what we do is we have Asian in Action, like all Asian folks, we call them ERG groups, like we have like Black community, we have ERG groups in our Dell. So I joined one of the ERG groups, like Asian in Action, where it's just not the culture, we like suppose any new engineer joins company, we give warm welcome to the new engineer, and we make them comfort. How when you join a new company, right? You be a bit nervous. So what do I as a Dell mentor, official Dell mentor? So whoever joins company, they look for a mentor, because they want to have somebody they can watch, they can ask any questions, because they will be hesitant to ask a manager, right? So they'll have a mentor. So I'm one of the mentor, and I've helped them, guide them, not just the technical aspects, but any other. Suppose you're new to the company, like whom you want to meet, whom you want to talk to people, right? So I do some kind of mentoring and guiding. That's one thing. And other one, like I said, we have cultural events, right, within the Dell company. We want to celebrate other cultures, right? So that's one we encourage. As a part of technical aspect, as other events also we celebrate. Yeah. Like also we want to encourage an equity, right? Like equality, like men and women. Like we want both to have similar benefits, right? We want to see how we can have similar benefits. Actually, my wife works in Fidelity, and they have a separate benefit for women. They have some, they every woman gets a certain amount for your future health benefit, right? So maybe it's not in Dell company, but we have other benefits, like we have like paternity leave, maternity leave. So like even paternity have 3 months, right? So other benefits we have in the company. So when we have an annual meeting, we talk about like what benefits you can improve for our colleagues, right? Which can benefit. Like we have other other help for the community, right? If they want any help, they can come ask for the help, right? So we have huge human resource department, so they can ask for any help. So that's we encourage.
Okay, great. Yeah, that Asian in Action Committee sounds really, really like a really good group. Julianne, did you have any other questions?
Well, just to follow up and for my own clarification, so what I think I understand you're saying is that um, cultural events, social events, are a way of bringing the community together, and it is what you're saying. And
Yep.
people getting to understand other cultures and get to know each other. And so it's these social events that, as Kristen said, it's when there's food, it's, that's always a plus. And so correct me if I'm wrong, that this.
Yeah, a lot of people like such events, so because I've been to some of the events, so I feel you can bring to the Northborough. Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
That will bring in all the people, not just a certain committee. Entire Northborough will be here, in a place where they can meet new people, right? Like you're not confined to your own complex, your own community, just not your own your neighborhood, right? You'll meet the different neighborhoods in the community in the town. That will help, maybe if you make more friends and you make new friends, right?
Right.
Suppose I think my wife follows we have Northborough group is there. I think women's group is there. So I get some of the information from her. Like they share each other, right? We have in Facebook they have a group. So I think instead of we'll more in person, like not just talking to somewhere in the social media. You talk in front of each other. Like some of the events helps us to bring together. That's what I felt.
Right. Yeah.
One example might be Food Fest. It can be
No,
more. Like how we have in Northborough town we have that, right? Like we celebrate, right? Yearly once, right? So we can do more.
yeah. No, that's a great idea. Becca, did you want to just talk quick about how the committee works?
Sure. So just briefly, hi, thank you for being here. Nice to meet you. Just in terms of the time commitment, what to expect, the meetings are typically weekday meetings in the evening, so 6 or 7 o'clock. We have been meeting via Zoom. The ability to meet over Zoom is going to expire this Friday, so we do expect that the legislature will take it up and extend that ability, but just be aware that there may be a short window of time where we'll have to actually meet in person. I know that doesn't offer as much flexibility in terms of scheduling, but the goal is ultimately to continue with virtual meetings if that's what works best for the committee. The initial ad hoc committee was meeting twice a month for about an hour to 2 hours a meeting. So anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a month. I don't expect that this committee will meet more than that. They may meet less than that, depending on what the needs are, what projects we're working on. If you haven't had a chance, the recommendations that were made to the board from the ad hoc committee are on the website. So those will be helpful to get some context in terms of what kinds of projects we're looking to tackle in the next 12 to 18 months. And the charge for the committee is there as well. So you can get a look at exactly what the role and responsibility of the committee members are. I think that your interests are great. The community events is certainly something that the ad hoc committee spent a lot of time talking about. We want to establish a permanent partnership with the Community Affairs Committee, who they're a group in town that's already putting on a lot of fantastic events, and they were very open and excited about the prospect of expanding the celebrations that they do. So looking at Diwali, obviously we added a menorah to the common this year. We want to expand on that next year. The Chinese New Year, we're really looking to provide as many opportunities for community members to, like you said, come together and meet each other one-on-one and perhaps get to meet folks that they wouldn't otherwise be interacting with. And we are building a cricket field at Milliken. So we're really excited about that and hoping that is another opportunity to bring people together who otherwise wouldn't be interacting. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your time and your interest in the committee.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your time. Good to see you guys.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Do you have any questions before you leave? Any
I
questions
think I'm
about?
fine. I think Becca told much of the brief, Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
Okay,
good, and I'm looking forward to
okay,
work with you guys.
thanks.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you. Nice to
nice
meet
to
you.
meet you. Okay, so Kristen,
Yeah.
I'm just going to read so that people at home understand what our charge is.
Okay,
Okay, so we have to decide on the composition of this committee. And the committee charge states, the committee shall consist of 9 voting members. The voting membership shall include the town administrator or his or designee, a representative from the school department's Coalition for Equity, a representative from the Council on Aging or their designee, and 6 at-large members. The Coalition for Equity member must be a Northborough resident. To the greatest extent possible, the members of the committee shall be diverse and be drawn from underrepresented groups. To that end, the Board of Selectmen shall strongly endeavor to ensure that its members represent 1, historically marginalized communities, including but not limited to people of color, women, LGBTQ and community members, low-income individuals, military combat veterans, people with disabilities, etc. 2, relevant experience in human rights, equity, community engagement, municipal government, and advocacy for individuals who are targets or mistreatment or discrimination. So that clearly helps our job. So shall we start with the so we have a pool of, I believe, 9 people, correct? Because Miriam has also indicated that she would like to stay on the committee. Unfortunately, the last interview when she was scheduled was during her religious holiday.
Yes.
So we have Cynthia Moore, Tim Kalin, Ashish Verma, Shrikant Devi, Matthew Benoit, Melissa Diglio, Sarah Shelton, and Young Tan, and Miriam. So that's, how many did you count?
um,
9, correct?
yeah, I was trying to write them all down again.
Okay, you want me to do it again?
Hold on. Okay, we had 4 tonight, and then with Miriam. And then I have Melissa Diglio, and then what was Sierra Shelton?
Yeah, it's pronounced Sarah, I think, Sarah Shelton.
But isn't it spelled sort of like?
Yeah, it's spelled S-E-I-R-A, capital S-H-A-L-T-O-N.
Okay,
And then Young Tan, capital Y-O-N-G, capital T-A-N.
okay, and then Matthew.
Benoit.
Okay. So we're going to disregard the fact that the previous interview committee made recommendations, right? We're doing our own thing tonight. Yeah?
Right.
Sound right to you, Becca? Are you listening? All right. I guess we don't really have a choice because there weren't enough people to fill the committee last time anyway. So we would be doing it all over again anyway.
Mhm.
And then we have a certain number of positions that are 1 year, some that are 2 years, some that are 3 years terms, right?
Right. But maybe our first thing should be to choose the 6.
2 of
And
each, right?
Sorry.
Sorry, we have 2 of each, 2 1 years, 2 2 years, 2 3 years.
Correct.
And then I know Diane sent us the actual motions to read, right? Yes.
Right. Yes, and yeah. Okay. So based on our charge, which is to pick the 6 at-large members from a diverse and or underrepresented group.
Yeah.
This is so difficult. I hope people at home understand how difficult this is.
It really is.
I,
I'm sorry, I made it more difficult by asking for more really good applicants, and we got them.
well, I think that automatically, and Tim was gracious enough to say that, you know, if he doesn't fit the, you know, the definition, I think that.
Or if we just have more
are-
people than we need. I think he was kind of getting at the fact that we're gonna have extra people, and he's already done it for a year, and that was very nice of him to say. Also, I like the idea of having him just kind of keeping it on his radar, because who knows, somebody might drop out, you know, like, you know, sometimes, like on the last committee, didn't someone move halfway through the year unexpectedly? So sometimes things like that happen, you know?
Mhm.
So, okay. So I I reread the applications from the previous group.
Mhm.
And I didn't actually read anything about Miriam, but I know a lot of people are very impressed with her and very happy with the work she did on the first committee. So I know she's a safe choice. I don't think anybody's going to be annoyed with us if we pick her. And I am personally also very impressed with her. And someone pulled me aside at Boy Scout camp drop off the other day to tell me how great she was. So that's a plus. But Melissa and Sierra, both I remember have worked in DEI positions in their jobs, and I know the previous interview committee was very impressed with both of them, right?
Mhm.
And recommended them both for the 3-year spots. So I think that's also a big gold star for them. Because I did watch the interviews and I was also very impressed with them. I read their applications recently, but I watched those interviews also, and they were very, they really seemed to know how to do the job as well as being representative from diverse groups.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
Yes. Because it is a certain amount of you know, knowing how to do the work. It is work, and it's volunteer work. And it's also our job to try and suggest, and our job meaning the 5 of us, to try and make sure we pick a committee, or at least the 6 people that we get to pick, that seem like they would work well together, right? That's really important. So anyway, I just said a lot of things. Do you want to say some things?
So I rewatched the interviews also today, and I totally agree with you. I mean, so for example, Melissa and Sarah, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Sarah in particular brings diversity as well as a lot of experience in the field, and Melissa brings her work with the Bentley Student Affairs and Police, correct? So those are experiences and work experiences that we don't have on the committee right now. Well, we don't really have a committee yet, but those are unique. And so I think that we would have to seriously, consider their candidacies.
Melissa is also married to a woman and has 2 kids. So she's part of the LGBTQ community, which before Becca was the only person, I think, right? Becca? I don't know if you were or not, but you don't know. And it's fine.
We don't, we didn't get into that, I guess.
And that's actually totally appropriate. But Melissa did mention it. I think she wrote it in her letter too. And I think that's good to have that community have a stronger voice. Cynthia said she is also, in her letter, she said she is also a member of that community and a mom of a kid in that community.
And Cynthia is really the, Ashish Verma, has experience working probably with maybe ADA population, but Cynthia's experience is, no one else has that experience in the pool of candidates. So as we move through this discussion, I would say that Miriam, Cynthia, Sarah, and Melissa are like that. Those would be not, 1, 2, 3, 4, but they would definitely be in the consider pool.
Yeah, your list. Yeah, they're high on your list. Is that what you're saying?
High on my list.
Yeah. I thought Cynthia's 2 questions were really, really good points. And I can't remember what the second one was. I didn't write it down. But the first one was about disability in the recommendations. And and then her second one was about why is this taking so long, kind of. So, and they were both really good, intelligent questions that clearly she's given this a lot of thought and done a lot of homework. And it looks like she read the recommendations of the ad hoc committee very carefully, which I appreciate.
Mhm.
And what was the other thing she said that kind of, the job offer situation that she got, offered a job for being so good at her job. And dealing with people with differing points of view. That is a really good skill that I don't know that everyone has.
Yeah, oh, totally. She's brought a lot to the table, for sure.
Right, like we could use her on a lot of committees. But anyway, and I know she had a lot to do with the playground in town.
Oh, good, good.
I think so. I think I saw that on Facebook. But anyway, she is a person who's not afraid to ask questions. She's not looking to make friends. She's just looking to do what's right, as far as I can tell. So I appreciate that about her. And let's see.
So are you saying that in the definitely to be considered column, you've got Cynthia, Sarah, Melissa. Oh gosh, sorry people.
That's okay. And Miriam, yeah. So the ladies all kind of knocked it out of the park. So do we want to talk about the gentlemen, the men, because it just happens to be that the 4 people who really stood out to us were all women, which is just a coincidence. We had Young Tan from the first group, who is from China. And the thing I remember about his interview the most is that he loves Northborough. He loves Applefest. If nothing else, he should be on the Applefest committee, if that's a thing. Isn't the Applefest committee a thing?
Yes.
And he and Shrikant seemed both to be very eager to work on social and cultural events, right?
Yes,
Am I reading-
definitely, definitely. Mhm.
And
What-
she seemed
Yeah, what I liked
we
about,
talked a lot about elderly people and sort of that perspective, which you know, no one else has brought up, and I know the Council on Aging is supposed to not appoint someone to be on this committee too. So hopefully we would have that, but I don't know if we would have it from that kind of perspective. I don't think they have anyone like him on there.
exactly, because there's so much, so many conditions now that are treated from home, and he understands that. And I also appreciated his comment about when people move here, he said something about, you know, trying to help them feel at home in town, and that's a perspective I hadn't heard either.
Right, that was an immigration perspective that we didn't even ask him about. And when I
Right.
asked him the first question, he didn't even say immigrant. He just said, I'm from India. So I guess that was sort of saying I'm an immigrant. But it is another perspective that, yeah. But again, some of the things he said also made me think of the Youth Commission, the kinds of things they work on too. So I know that the Community Affairs Committee was a group that the first committee talked about coordinating with, but I wonder if the Youth Commission is also one that this committee needs to, like if there's anything they could do together. I don't know.
You mean Youth Commission or Family and Youth Services?
Yeah, the Family and Youth Services Department, their committee is called the Youth Commission,
Okay, gotcha.
which is
Yeah.
a little confusing, but yeah, it just made me think of them and the kinds of things that they do. And yeah, so I don't know. So we have to make official recommendations. We have to read those motions. So we need to pick 2 other people. We didn't mention, well, we mentioned Tim a little bit. I think he had more invested in this than, I mean, nothing against Matthew Benoit, but I wasn't sure. I think it's awesome that he was the youngest person by quite a bit. Oh, well, except for Miriam. Miriam is the youngest. But Matthew Benoit was very enthusiastic, and he's he's relatively new to town, right? Am I mistaken?
Yes, yeah, I think a year maybe.
Yeah. And I think it's wonderful to have new young people on boards and committees. I'm just not sure that the DEI committee is the best one for him right now. He did say something about if you don't take me this time, I'll just keep applying, which was sweet. But I would love it if he would apply for other committees besides this one also. And then maybe eventually we could use him on more than one.
Well, I mean, his enthusiasm was wonderful, and he clearly is an accomplished young man. But if we go by what we are charged with doing,
Yeah.
to choose people from diverse and underrepresented groups.
Right. Or those other things. I don't think he's a combat veteran. I don't think he's has experience in municipal politics, you know.
Mhm.
So I don't think he really checks any of the boxes. So I think we're gonna have to I won't recommend him. Definitely.
I would agree, and I absolutely agree with you also that I hope he he does keep applying or find something, some other way of helping out our town.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so that's, okay, so that leaves Tim, Young Tan, Ashish Verma, and Srikant
TV.
discussed. So I think we've agreed that Miriam, Cynthia, Sarah, oh my gosh, Melissa,
Yeah,
Miriam, Cynthia, Melissa, Sarah, that's 4. No, there's somebody else that we agreed. We're really, yeah. So we've got those 4, so we need 2 more. Okay.
and
Now-
we have, honestly, we have 4 really good candidates, so we have to pick 2 of those, right? And
We have picked
Yes,
2 out of
the 4,
Lloyd, Tim Kalen,
Ashish
and Srikant.
and Young Tan. Yeah, and
Right,
if
Right.
we just take Tim up on his offer to put him on the we'll take
kind of
you.
advisory, helpful.
Yeah.
Capacity, yeah,
Yeah.
that was really gracious.
Because we do have other people who have other kinds of qualifications. Then we have Ashish, Srikant, and Young Tan for 2 spots.
Mhm. So Young Tan would represent the Asian community, which I think definitely would be great. But Sarah does too, I think. Sarah,
I think she said she's from Singapore.
right. Oh, okay.
So we have 4 AAPI people, right?
Asian, what is Asian Pacific? Is that? Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
Asian Pacific Islander. What's the other A? Asian American? Yeah, Asian American Pacific Islander. So that's, yeah, so they all, so let's not really consider where they're from. Let's consider what kinds of things they talked about, right? And we talked about Sarah already, about her other qualifications. So I'm sort of considering Ashish, Srikant, and Young Tan.
Mhm.
And I honestly, I don't know the other 2 fellows. I know Ashish would understand if he wasn't the one that we recommended, or then when the board goes, like, he's not going to be insulted. And I like to think the other 2 fellows would feel the same. And maybe, like, ideally, what I would like is for Tim's already on other committees, so I'm not going to say this about him, but the other ones, like I said about Matthew Benoit, I love the idea that if they don't end up on this committee, that they apply for something else that they think they would fit into. When I did my reaching out to people after we decided we wanted more applications for this one, I didn't just tell people about the DEI committee. I told them about all the committees where we had openings. And then we did end up having some other people apply for other committees that maybe saw those posts and said, well, I'm not really interested in the DEI committee. And maybe the DEI committee might be a little stressful sometimes for anyone, so maybe they would rather be on a more fun committee. I totally get that. So anyway, I hope that people will pursue other boards and committees in town. Can I just pause for a second? Is that okay? I know we're
Sure.
in the middle of something, but the thunderstorm's about to start and I have to go deal with something.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, hi. So what are you thinking? It's also good to just take a little break.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is that that Young Tan represents the Asian community, and I did like his enthusiasm. I think that Ashish has that that kind of understanding of the elderly, which can only help. And as we said, we liked his comment about recognizing that when people immigrate to Northborough, it might not be easy at first.
Yeah.
I thought Srikant was a great candidate. I'm a little hesitant there because he focused a lot on social events, and I think there's going to be obviously more to this committee, and although that's really important and it's a wonderful thing, that seemed to be a big focus of his.
Mm-hmm.
So I've written down the people that I think are in agreement that we are definite on.
Yeah.
So here it is: Miriam, Sarah, or Sierra, Melissa, Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
So then out of and we've kind of decided that Matthew and Tim, we're gonna, we thought that they they're not really fitting the criteria of what we're charged with.
Right. Oh, I think, and Tim certainly had the municipal experience and the passion for the subject, which would have been great, but we have more people than we can squeeze in. So,
and he was gracious enough to offer that if there are others, go with the others. So
that really was very kind of him. So
that leaves Ashish, Young Tan, and Srikant. And well, out of those three, what two would you pick?
So I'm wondering, I mean, I didn't do the interview with Young Tan, right? I just watched it. So it's a very different feel. But of the interviews we did tonight, I felt like it was a little bit, Srikanth also talked a lot, right? He talked a lot. And I'm wondering if, like sometimes I felt like I couldn't get a word in, and that's not the easiest person to have on a committee of a bunch of people who all have a lot to say, right? So I'm sure with some feedback, he would probably work on that. But I mean, that just comes from my speech pathology perspective. Like that's a pragmatic language skill. It didn't have anything to do with his accent. His English is perfect and really good. It was just a social pragmatic language skill that makes it difficult to be on a committee like this that can get sometimes super stressful. And if people feel like they need to say something, but there's one person who isn't really reading the room and doesn't maybe understand that lots of people are trying to say something, that worries me. So that was the main thing with him, because I feel like he probably would be happy to work on the other things the committee wanted to work on, although he didn't talk about anything else in his interview other than his experience at work organizing the Diwali festival and the Asians in Action Committee, which sounds great. But I wonder if he would be willing to like present to the DEI committee and work on a Diwali festival, since he has experience with that, even if he's not on the committee. Like, would he be willing to just sort of be a consultant for the committee when they do work on the, like, maybe they have a handful of people that help them with the Diwali festival, because we don't have that many people on the committee. And also I talked to the Community Affairs Committee too about this, like the entire committee. I was at one of their meetings and they felt very strongly that like they love the idea of the DEI committee starting to do other religious festivals and starting to do other community and cultural events, but they don't want people to say, okay, this is what you're doing now, like, and put it all on the Community Affairs Committee and say, now you do this festival, you know, like that's not, they already do a lot of work. So I think what they would like is to work together with some other people. So I just wonder if, like, we pick the actual committee, and then the committee has branches where they reach out to other community experts in various ways to work on the particular projects that they're working on, which are very heterogeneous, because we're talking about everything from making sure town hall is ADA compliant to a Diwali festival. Like, that's a big umbrella that this committee is working on. So if these 9 people are sort of the point people for the projects, and then if they extend into other communities to get the work done, that's really what we want. And like Tim pointed out, like, that is really what we're looking for too, is for the entire community to get involved and to do the actual work. So that's true. So I wonder, would that, I don't know how that would go over as a suggestion to him, but I would lean that way maybe. Or we could pick him and tell Ashish maybe he would be more helpful on the Council on Aging. I don't know.
I you know, to your point, I just thought that Ashish brings more. He brings a lot to the table. It's you know, and so I think we agree Ashish is definitely, you know, he adds a lot. which then we have to, so for me, we have Young Tan and Shrikant. And if we're really looking for diversity, I think someone who grew up and worked in China brings that part of diversity to the committee.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't argue with that. He's the only person from China who applied, and he's
And we have a fairly large Asian community,
Chinese community. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of neighbors. I know a lot of my neighbors are from China, and my kids' friends. My kids have a lot of friends whose parents or grandparents are from China. So I don't think it's appropriate to ignore that community. Who's calling you?
No one is calling me. I don't know. I thought the meeting was over for a second there. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I think we're in agreement about Young Tan.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So then I'm just gonna come out and say I thought Ashish was offered a lot.
Okay.
More than diversity. He offered the whole elderly, medical, and immigration sensitivity.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, he did also say he read the recommendations from the last committee on the website, which is that's doing your homework.
So we potentially have 6. I'll read them and you can say whether yay or nay. Miriam, Sarah, Melissa Diglio, Cynthia Moore, Young Tan, and Ashish Verma.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good. I'm putting them in the slots for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year.
Okay.
And then.
So yeah, I was thinking Ashish and Young Tan for the partial 1 year term, just so they can, get used to it, figure it out, and if they like it, reapply. If not, you know what I mean? What do you think?
That's where I put them too.
Okay.
Mostly in my case, not so much because of them, but because I was going to just go ahead and follow up with the previous recommendation of Sierra and Melissa being in the 3 year spots, because I think the less shaking up we do, the better.
Okay.
They both seem really very qualified and excellent candidates. And then Miriam and Cynthia in the 2 year slots, because they're both going to be really, really good for this committee and very qualified. And I actually did reach out to Miriam and double checked that a 2 year spot was okay with her way back before we did the second set of interviews, before that last board meeting.
Right.
Or around that last board meeting. And I just said, would it be okay if we appointed you to a 2 year spot instead of a 1 year? And she said yes.
Okay. Okay.
We have the choice there of what to recommend her for. So we could switch her with one of the men too, if we wanted. But right now it's just recommendations anyway. It's not the actual.
And I think for Ashish and Young, it's, get their feet wet, see if, how they fit, and then they can decide at the end of a year if they want to stay on and reapply.
Okay.
Okay, so Kristen, Miriam's last name is Ibrahimi?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think what has to happen now is I'm going to make the motion, you second, and then we have to do voice vote, okay? Are
Yes,
you
ma'am.
ready? Do you
I
want
am
to
ready.
discuss any more?
No.
Okay, all right. I move the interview committee vote to recommend Ashish Verma for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial one-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So,
Second,
okay. But this has to be a roll call vote. Kristen, your vote would be,
aye.
and I also vote aye. Okay, second motion. I move the interview committee vote to recommend Young Tan for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial one-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I vote aye. Third, I move the interview committee vote to recommend Miriam Ibrahimi for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial two-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
A second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I vote aye. I move the interview committee vote to recommend Cynthia Moore for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial two-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I vote aye. I move the interview committee vote to recommend Melissa Diglio for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial three-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I vote aye. I move the interview committee vote to recommend Sarah Shelton for appointment to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee for a partial three-year term at the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I also vote aye. All right. Okay. And I think that ends our business. We voted, we approved the minutes, and if anyone is still watching, I just want to say we are blessed with so many wonderful, talented candidates, and this has been an extremely hard decision, but how lucky are we in Northborough to have all of these wonderful people?
Yes. Agreed. Second,
So how about this one? I move to adjourn.
second,
Roll call vote. Kristen?
aye.
And I also vote aye. Thank you so much, Becca.
Thanks, Becca. Good luck with everything. And thank you, Julianne.